Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be talking about the test that you really need to get, especially if you have a family history of high cholesterol, heart disease, stroke, any problems related to the cardiovascular system, heart attack, sudden cardiac arrest. This is a test that not a lot of people know about, but it's a test that is becoming more prominent, more available, more insurance companies are starting to cover it. I'm going to tell you about my experience with this test. I've taken it twice now. I'm going to tell you why it's important to take this test and to not just start taking a statin. This test is a test that can give you information that you need to know so that you can make an informed decision on your health moving forward. A little bit about me. I have on my dad's side and my mom's side a history of heart attack, of high cholesterol. My grandfather on my dad's side passed away from a stroke. My grandfather on my mother's side passed away from a heart attack. My dad had a serious heart attack. I have a pretty extensive history of heart disease in my family. I myself have high cholesterol. I got a test back in 2018 after my dad's heart attack. I had a cholesterol level, total cholesterol of 240, and then I've had several cholesterol tests up until last year where my cholesterol was up to a 297. There's a lot of research out there that is now saying that high LDL is not the problem that people think it is, that it's actually other indicators that can better predict heart disease. And one of those indicators is blood sugar, but that might be a topic for another video. Going back to the test, before the CT scan, which is what this test is called, or a CAC scan, which stands for coronary calcium scan, which I'll get into later in the video. Before the advent of this test, what was customary is to have a total lipid profile done. So to measure your total cholesterol, your HDL, or the quote good cholesterol, the LDL, or the quote bad cholesterol, and triglycerides. And what doctors were doing and still do up to this point is they would look at your total cholesterol, and if your total cholesterol was over 200, they would start to fire the alarm and say, oh my goodness, your cholesterol is over 200. You need to get on a statin. Before this CT test came out, that was what was happening, and people had no way of understanding where the cholesterol was, if the cholesterol was accumulating in their arteries, which is the cause for heart attacks. But people had no way of understanding what their heart actually looked like. They knew what their total cholesterol was, but they didn't know whether they had a blockage or no blockage. So I started doing my own research as my cholesterol continued to climb. And what I didn't want to do was get on a medication without subjecting to critical thought what the doctors were saying, because every other measurement that I had, my blood sugar, my blood pressure, my HDL was high. Every other measurement I had pointed to the fact that I was completely healthy. So I started doing research. I found out about this CAC test, and I figured that it was super important for me to cut through what may have been a bunch of noise and to just see what my heart actually looked like. And then the CAC test, what it does is it returns a score after a radiologist and a doctor look at your heart, look at the pictures of your heart. They will give you a score, and the score on a scale is a rough predictor of your chance of having a cardiac event in the next 10 years or the next decade. So the first time I took the CAC test was back in September, October of 2022. It was the first test that I ever took. It was after my doctor at the time in Michigan told me, you have really high cholesterol. It was maybe a 240 or 250 at the time. And I kindly told her, I said, well, I understand I have high cholesterol, but I want to get a coronary arterial scan so that I can figure out exactly what my heart looks like before I can commit to taking a statin. Because what I don't want to do is take a medication that I don't think I need to take, to commit to taking a medication with incomplete information. So that's what I did. Back in 2022, I'm in the military and I have TRICARE as my insurance. Back in 2022, at least at the hospital that I went to in Michigan, the CAC wasn't covered. So for me to get the CAC, I would have had to pay out of pocket, which I did. $100. It was $100 back then. And I would tell you that $100 is probably a paltry price to pay if you have it, or if you can take a credit card and pay for it, to understand what's happening with arguably the most important organ, probably tied with the brain, but the most important organ in your body, what it's doing, what it looks like, and how much blockage, if any, you have in your arteries. I did that. I took the test and it returned with an 8. So there are 4 major arteries that in your heart. There are 4, and the major one, the one that my dad had trouble with, is called the LAD, the left anterior descending artery. It's also known as the widowmaker artery, which you can gather why it's called that. My dad had an 80% blockage in his LAD. So in my other 3 arteries, there was 0 plaque whatsoever. 0 plaque, even though my cholesterol was 240 or 250 at the time. But in my left anterior descending artery, there was plaque, and it was scored at an 8. Anything below a 10 means that, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it means that you have a minimal chance of having a heart attack in the next 10 years. Minimal, very minimal. So what that told me was a couple things. It told me, one, that 8 was my baseline. I don't know how that plaque accumulated up to that point, because it was the first CAC that I ever took. I did not live a healthy lifestyle in college. I drank a lot of alcohol, and alcohol, research shows, can contribute to plaque buildup in the arteries. It's a drug that has nothing but negative effects on your heart and other organs in your body, such as your liver. So I realized, number one, that 8 was my baseline. So I couldn't take that information and say to myself that I need to start taking a statin right away, because 8, that's my baseline. I don't know how that plaque accumulated. I don't know if it all accumulated in the past year. I don't know if it had all accumulated over time since my early 20s or even my teens. I have no idea. So the doctor looked at my score and said, you shouldn't have any plaque in your arteries. And I couldn't argue with that, but he said, you should probably get on a statin. And so what I told him and what I told his staff was, thank you for the recommendation, but I don't know how that plaque accumulated. So I need to use that as my baseline. So right now I feel fine. I'm not going to commit to taking any statins right now. So over the course of 2 years, nothing happened. Everything was good. No issues whatsoever. I took another cholesterol test back in September of 2023, and my cholesterol was at 297. Again, most people under conventional wisdom would say, oh my goodness, you're going to have a heart attack tomorrow. 297. Oh, that is way too high. I wasn't alarmed by that. I just said, look, before I want to start taking a high dosage of statins, I need to understand what is going on with my heart, what my heart looks like. Because now, the useful information I have now is that back in 2022, I had no plaque in 3 of the 4 arteries, and in one of my arteries, the left anterior descending artery, the score was 8. So now I have a baseline. So now I know that if my score is above an 8 in the LAD and it's above a 0 in the other 3 arteries, I know that there's a problem, and I should probably start taking a statin or doing some other sort of therapy to get it under control and to mitigate the effects that it'll probably have in the future. So I went and I took another CAC, and this time it was at Walter Reed, so I didn't have to pay out of pocket for it. And now I'm hearing that more insurance companies are covering a CAC because it's in their best interest to do so, because if someone has that kind of information, they know what their heart looks like, they can cut through all the noise, they can not take medications that they probably don't need to be taking, instead of listening to the doctor and saying, okay, even though I have incomplete information, I'm just going to start taking a statin. I took the CAC, my second CAC, in February of this year, of 2024. and there was no plaque in 3 of my arteries as with the last plaque. But this time there was a score of 3 in the left anterior descending artery. So the score actually went down. The level of plaque decreased. And I remember the radiologist, after I did my CAC, he looked at the pictures of my heart and he said, wow, there's virtually nothing in your heart from a plaque perspective. These pictures look awesome. And a week later, the doctor called me and said, yeah, 3 down from an 8. Not sure how that's possible, because something that the doctors told me in the past was, once you have the plaque there, there's no way to reduce it. There's no way to reduce it on your own. It's there, and it's going to either stay stagnant or it's going to continue to accumulate. Going from an 8 and decreasing to a 3 is virtually unheard of. I'm not sure how that happened. I have my theories, but there's no way for me to test it and to be certain, to ascertain what actually happened. My theory is that I stopped drinking alcohol completely in November 2022. My last drink was on 25 November 2022. I have not had a drop of alcohol since then. And I think that's the only change that I've made that could account for an over 50% reduction in the plaque in my left anterior descending artery. That's it. I take other supplements. I take athletic greens. I take krill oil. My diet has not changed whatsoever. I'm not a ketogenic follower, but I do eat a relatively low carb diet. I try to prioritize fats and protein while minimizing the processed carbs, but I don't have a strict diet. I avoid candy, I avoid all sorts of refined carbohydrates, and that's pretty much it. So the only thing that changed appreciably was avoiding the alcohol. Now, I can't prove that that's what accounts for the reduction in plaque in my left anterior descending artery, but there's a strong case for it based on the fact that nothing else has changed in my diet since then. If you have high cholesterol, or even if you're starting to get older, or you are overweight, or you believe that you're at risk for heart disease based on symptoms that you're having, or based on the fact that your family has a history of heart disease, I would strongly recommend that you either pay the $100 out of pocket to get a CAC done. It takes 10 minutes to get it done. You go through a scanner, and then the radiologist takes the pictures, and then the doctor calls you about a week later. Nothing compares to having the information like that, where you have clear pictures of your heart and you can see the arteries, you can see where the plaque is, if there is any plaque, and which arteries you have plaque in. That can cut through all the noise, and that's the signal. As you cut through all the noise, you can make informed decisions on whether you want to take medication, if you need to do things differently in your life as far as your diet, alcohol consumption, any sort of other substance consumption. You can make actionable decisions based on good information instead of relying on someone to tell you, oh, your cholesterol is high, you need to start taking a statin. High cholesterol, I'm finding, based on research that I've done and based on reading the research that respected people have done in this field, high cholesterol doesn't necessarily mean you have a problem. High cholesterol doesn't necessarily mean you have a problem, but if you can get a picture of your heart, if you can get a CAC CT scan, that can cut through everything, and it can give you information that you can use to either continue to do what you're doing, or to say, hey, I might need to quit smoking, or I might need to quit drinking so much, and I might need to take some other supplements, or I might need to go back to the doctor and ask for more advice. But at least you have information to where you can make an informed decision, where you've arrived at the product of your own conclusions. You are your own best advocate when it comes to your health. Doctors are great people, and they're interested in helping you. That's their job. But at the same time, no one's going to care more about your health, and no one is going to have the impetus to research concerning your own health than you. So you have to take that into your own hands, and you have to realize that. And that's what I've done over the course of the years. We're at a point in time where information is available to everybody. It's not just available to rich people. It's not just available to educated people. It's not just available to people with graduate and doctorates. It's available to everybody. All you have to do is get on YouTube. You have to cut through a lot of misinformation, but you can tell if someone knows what they're talking about based on the following they have, based on research they've published, based on the quality of their content. Information is not just relegated to people who are rich or people who have money now. Everyone can get this information. So you have to get out there and you have to find it. Make the decisions that are best for you after you've arrived at the product of your own conclusions. But I would highly recommend, even if you don't have any family history of heart disease, even if you feel great, you're out there exercising every day, you have no symptoms, no chest pain, anything along those lines, I would highly recommend, especially if you're in your late 30s, early 40s, highly recommend that you get a CAC done. Pay the money. If your insurance doesn't cover it, $100 is nothing for the information that you get from it. Pay the money, or ask your insurance company if you can get yourself a CAC because you want to know what's going on with your heart. All right, appreciate you tuning into this video. Thanks for listening to my story. This is super important. Your health is super important. You got to take it into your own hands. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, jump rope freedom. Peace. Take care.